So, the first question is about how and why and when you started playing classical music, and why the trombone, and how.
Right, sure. Um, None of my parents are musicians. I say none because I have step parents as well. Um, my mom was a teacher. My stepdad is a mechanical engineer. My dad was retired, but he was in the medical device sterilization industry. However, my mom was a big proponent of music, and I remember as a very little kid going to kinder music class with her, and going to church and singing in church choir ever since I can remember, all the way until I went to college. So I think my exposure to classical music started, in the church. I really enjoyed singing in the choir, and I had two older sisters, 3 years older. They both sang in the choir as well. And when I was in third grade, I started taking piano lessons. It didn't last a super long time. The teacher was great. She would come to our house. It was enjoyable, but I eventually kind of wasn't super interested in practicing. It's hard at that age to stay motivated to practice. I was more interested in playing outside with my friends, so I sort of stopped that for a while. However, I still would oftentimes sit down at the piano and try to figure things out that I heard, by ear on TV or from video games or movies, and I think that helped, sustain the interest. And my older sister, when she was in 5th grade, she started in band on French horn. So I heard that at home, and I kind of followed in her footsteps and decided I wanted to do band as well. So I think the way that it worked at my school was you could select your top 3 instruments. Mine were saxophone, trumpet, and percussion. Those are the saxophone is cool when you're that age.
So you didn't want to play the French horn like your sister?
No. Something different. And so anyway, what we did was we took a test, I guess, where we heard different sounds and we selected what we liked. And growing up, I was always one of the tallest students in my grade. Eventually, other people caught up. But I remember the band teacher talked to me, and he said, how would you feel about maybe doing trombone? You have really long arms, you can reach the 7th position. And I was like, okay, sure, why not? So I picked it, and I just really enjoyed it and stuck with it all the way through. And kind of a turning point for me was when I was in 9th grade, I started taking private lessons with a local bass trombone player, actually.
And by local, you mean where? Where did you?
So I grew up in upstate New York.
Upstate New York.
About an hour north of Albany, so kind of in the Adirondack area. So there was a
So you had band, but did you also have like a youth orchestra of some sort in the?
So I started taking private lessons in 9th grade, and then what happened was there was a youth orchestra in Albany, New York, called the Empire State Youth Orchestra, and they had an opening. I think it was right at the beginning of the fall. They had an opening. One of the trombone players had got accepted into the Juilliard pre-college program, so he was, I guess, moving or commuting to New York City for that, and they had an opening, and my teacher said, why don't you go and audition for it? I'd never really played any orchestra exit before and didn't really know what to expect. And I remember Prokofiev, Romeo and Juliet was on the list, and alto clef and all this Russian, text, and I was like, what the heck is what is all this? I don't know what this is. Anyway, I did my best, and the conductor, who was fantastic, was very patient, I guess, during the audition. Afterwards, I think the personnel manager reached out and said, you're not really quite the level that we're looking for, but we'll give you a chance. So I was like, yes. So I joined it not really knowing what to expect, and we got to play. I think my first year we did Prokofiev, Romeo and Juliet. We did Nixon in China, the Chairman dances. So we did contemporary music as well.
Lots of difficult,
yeah,
difficult rap. So,
and that kind of blew my mind. I had never played anything like that. We did in band. We did like Holt, Gustav Holst suites and some transcriptions of Italian and Algiers overture, things like that. But I had never played anything quite of that scale before, and that was kind of the defining moment. Like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So from there on, I just kind of gave up all the sports I was playing and just honed in on the music. So.
And how did you get into the Huntsville Symphony, and when?
So it was, I think, 2019. I believe it was May 5th, because on May 4th, I had my graduation from University of Alabama. I had just finished my doctoral degree. So I walked the day before and I was thinking, man, I don't know. I have an audition the next day. My family is in town. I don't know how this is going to go, but it worked out fine, and the stars all kind of aligned. And
you remember what the first show was that you played with the orchestra?
Yes, I remember Brahms 2, Symphony Number 2. I don't remember what else was on the program, but that was, the highlight for me. So the amazing trombone parts and the, descending scalar run at the end and everything, the D major chords.
So what else do you do outside the symphony? Like you play in other orchestras or you teach?
Yeah, so my full-time job is I'm the assistant professor of trombone / music theory at Alabama State University, which is an HBCU in Montgomery, Alabama. So it's about 3 hours south of here, right in the middle of the state. So I have a studio of about typically 8 to 10 trombone players, all music majors. Sometimes I have some euphonium. I also teach music theory 4, the 4th level, oral skills 4, and I co-teach the brass methods class. So that keeps me busy. I'm also playing acting principal in the Mobile Symphony Orchestra, which is kind of 3 hours, a little under 3 hours the opposite direction.
Even further south,
yeah.
Yes.
So I'm kind of equidistant in between Huntsville and Mobile. So those keep me busy and they keep me motivated to practice and kind of satisfy the itch of playing in the orchestra with other people. So.
And what else do you do? Like what, if it's not music, not teaching, not driving between jobs, what do you do for fun?
Well, right now we have a 19-month-old daughter at home, so she keeps us plenty busy. So
that's another full-time job there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yeah.
So trying to find right now at this stage of my life, trying to find fun activities for her to do and introduce her to different things, which has been a lot of fun. Outside of family, I enjoy running. I haven't been doing it as much since we've had our daughter. I used to run 5Ks, not super competitively, but I would, sort of sign up for one here or there to keep myself motivated to run. I enjoy trying new restaurants. Huntsville has more diversity in terms of restaurants than a lot of other parts of Alabama. So when I come here, I enjoy, exploring different places.
And based on your own experience as a professional musician and as a teacher, how do you see the present and the future of classical music? Because you just told me about how you've gotten into it. And I'm sure you see very different stories with your students, how and why somebody picks up an instrument and finally decides to, okay, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And I think we mostly just tend to be very pessimistic about, it's not an easy business, but I'm curious about your take on this. What do you see? How do you see your students? How do you see your own future in the classical music business?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a loaded topic and difficult to have the right answers for. I know a lot of my students, even the schools I taught at before, they got into music because of marching band, which is interesting for me. I didn't have marching band growing up, so I never did marching band. It's not super common in upstate New York, maybe because of the weather, but in the South, it's very different. But I think there will always be an audience for classical music. I think the problem will be, currently and in the future, trying to, figure out how to get the audience to come in, how to make them all feel, welcome. And for some people, I think it's sort of a foreign thing. They don't understand it, so they kind of avoid it. But I think by continuing to have music concerts, video game concerts, music concerts, cover bands come in, that's a chance to get audiences to come into our doors, and then maybe they'll, try something different and figure out what they like. Having diverse programming, diverse artists, all of those things. So I think that will continue to be the challenge, I think, is to try to attract the audiences to come in. But I do think, there's nothing that there's nothing that can replace seeing live music, in terms of
Yeah.
the visual aspect. You can't replicate the sound quality no matter how good speakers you have, right? So to being live and hearing.
And the social element
Exactly,
of it is,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, everybody coming together and feeling the emotion and having that human interaction, I think.
So you mentioned cover bands. I'm just curious what other type of music you listen to for, like, when you run, let's say. What do you listen to?
Actually, it's kind of funny when I run. I usually go on Spotify and I'll type in like 180 BPM to listen to music.
And
kind
it
of
gives you the
music.
tempo, yeah.
But I have to give credit to my dad. He introduced me when I was younger to classic rock.
Okay.
So I listened to a lot of classic rock, Led Zeppelin. There's a band I recently got into called Wolf Mother. It's kind of like I guess you could say like a neo classic rock / garage band kind of garage rock. I also love listening to jazz, especially jazz trombone. A lot of times when I'm in the car driving, I'm listening to whatever I have coming up, just kind of on repeat to get familiar with the music. But I would say probably classic rock and jazz, probably the most.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you play jazz yourself? Like not really. You tried?
I enjoy playing jazz.
Uh-huh.
I always say that I can play jazz, but I'm not great at improvising.
Okay.
Just because I never was able to devote.
So,
time.
but you like big band type of music,
Yeah,
for example.
I
That's fun.
love that. So.
Yeah.
I would feel comfortable playing in a professional setting as long as I don't have to improvise.
Okay.
Which doesn't really doesn't really exist for tenor trombone, I guess. But,
Yeah. Well, it's a different
right.
way of learning or
Right.
preparing for improvisation than
I
for
was
what
fortunate.
we do.
I don't know if you're familiar with the name David Baker.
Oh yes.
I was very fortunate in my undergrad at Indiana to take a jazz improv class with him.
Okay. Cool.
We were kind of a group of classical trombone players. We sat in the back of the room. Well, it was very interesting though. He would just sit at the piano and play tunes very, very quickly, and you would be expected to kind of memorize it on the fly. And there would be a rhythm section playing, and he would just point at people around the room, and you would take, however many bars of a solo and improvise. And it was very, eye-opening. And I wish I could have devoted more time to that. I always just felt like I was, being pulled in too many directions, and I had to just pick one or the other. But I do sort of regret not doing more jazz in the past. So.
But it's fun to just at least know swing and
Right.
just different styles. Yeah.
And I always thought that the music theory aspect was interesting, comparing, the way that jazz musicians talk about theories, the terminology is different, and the lead sheet symbols and all of that. I found it interesting. So.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate
Appreciate it.
Thanks.